The European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen has condemned Israel's military expansion in the Gaza Strip. In a phone call with Jordan's King Abdullah, von der Leyen said the recent Israeli attacks on civilian infrastructure were abhorrent and called for the Israeli government to immediately halt the escalation and restore the delivery of humanitarian aid in the region. This is after the German foreign minister has threatened unspecified measures against Israel, saying Berlin would not support the export of weapons used to break humanitarian law. The comments are part of a significant tone shift from Germany, which supported Israel's conduct even as the UK and France condemned the behavior. This comes after the Chancellor, Friedrich Merz, slammed Israel's actions in Gaza, saying they were, quote, no longer comprehensible. So let's discuss what's going on here with our next guest, Yossi Mekelberg, Senior Consulting Fellow, Middle East and North Africa Program at Chatham House. Yossi, good morning, and thanks for joining us on such an important topic. First and foremost, just give us an idea, give us a sense, really, of how important the tone shift from Germany is for what might happen next in the Middle East.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. I think we see a shift not only in Germany, we saw it in the UK last week when the Foreign Secretary David Lammy says very similar things in Parliament. There was a joint statement by UK, France and Canada, the suspension of the trade talks between the UK and Israel, the review of the association agreement between the EU and Israel, and now which, a country that's Germany that usually doesn't criticize Israel, definitely not in public, is joining in, because we are 600 days exactly today since the war began. And there is no end in sight. Instead of this, we see a worse humanitarian disaster is developing in Gaza. Israel is allowing only very limited humanitarian aid, and is threatening actually to expand its military operation there. All of this resulted in the international community, especially here in Europe.
Apologies for interrupting, but what I'm trying to understand as well is, yes, we are hearing this, the narrative changing from a lot of international partners, but what is this going to change actually going to do from a practical point of view? What sort of actions can we expect that will ultimately perhaps change the dynamics for Israel?
Yeah, this is exactly the point that I was about to make. We see a change in rhetoric, we see a change of approach, but just reviewing or suspending talks is not going to make a difference. I think there is what they're trying to send a signal to Israel. The next move we might have more teeth. And now it's a warning. But we see that this is a very intransigent Israeli government. It's a government that has, especially the right wing, its idea is to occupy Gaza and possibly expel Palestinians, all of them from Gaza. And as a result of it, unless there are more concrete measures, probably it won't change much.
I'm also trying to understand what perhaps could be the role of the United States in this war, now that we are seeing a lot of countries changing their narrative towards Israel. What do you expect from Donald Trump in this context?
Well, there is difference between what I expect and what's going to happen. I think we know that the current administration is an enigma and unpredictable. So what we'd expect to see is what he did actually before the inauguration, to put pressure on both sides to reach an agreement and to stand by an agreement. And we saw at least it led to a first phase of a ceasefire agreement and the exchange of Israeli hostages for a Palestinian prisoner, and a few weeks of ceasefire, allowing also humanitarian aid to enter into the street. Now, we need to see this again, and pressure coming from the United States to end the war. Israel is not going to achieve either the aim of complete defeat of Hamas or the release of the hostages without a diplomatic agreement. Whether the Trump administration is ready to do that, it's a big question. What we hear is that also President Trump is getting more and more frustrated by the Israeli approach. The question is going again to lead to some concrete action by the United States. And we always need to remember it's Washington that has the most power to make Israel to listen and to act accordingly.